1 is roughly 30 minutes long, Act 2 is roughly 60 minutes long, and Act 3 is roughly 30 minutes long. Now, after working with my writing system, which is called the Horowitz system, which works with a 12 sequence way of working with movie structure, I realized that most of my writers had tremendous trouble with Act 2, that most writers could come up with a reasonable Act 1, and if they knew their ending, a reasonable Act 3, but the long middle, the 60-minute chunk, or 60-page chunk, was really very daunting. So the most important thing that I did, and what I'm told is revolutionary, and I hope that it is that I took the long middle of Act 2 and I broke it into 2 parts. And so instead of having 30 minutes, 60 minutes, and 30 minutes, or 30 pages, 60 minutes, 60 pages, and 30 pages, we now had 4 sections that were each roughly 30 minutes long. And what that allowed us to do, as you know from the experience perhaps of ever carrying a big tray, that it's very hard to carry a very big tray, but if you carry a smaller tray or 2 trays, you can manage. Or if you've ever juggled, it's very hard to juggle 3 balls, which is Act 1, Act 2, and 3, and it's a lot easier to juggle less balls, and that's how we do this. And we're going to talk more about how we simplify the process of plotting by using these 4 sections. So in the diagram, again, I'm going to hold this up, you'll see that there are 4 chunks. I don't know how close we can get, and I'm mirror imaged here, so here we go. You'll see that there are 4 chunks of color here, and each one of them represents one of these 30-minute sequences. If you're looking in your book, we're actually looking at page 1. So I'm going to ask you to watch Witness and watch it in these 30-minute sections and see what you come up with. Now, in my introduction, what I talk about are the benefits of learning this method. So let me repeat them quickly here, even though you will be reading this hopefully over the next week. This will help you organize your screenplay quickly and with confidence. You will write a better and a more original story with surprising plot twists and turns. You will have fun because even from right this moment, I promise you in about 5 minutes you're actually going to know what you're doing. And you'll write good dialogue because you know what your characters would say and why they're going to say it. And because we're going to structure this with the characters driving the plot rather than those set pieces I spoke about, the Mount Rushmore things driving the plot, when you have to rewrite, and anybody who says they don't have to rewrite is not a writer as far as I'm concerned. Not that you don't occasionally get lucky, as you do with all things. You will be able to rewrite the script much more easily because you will have built it in the way where you have used your main character's wants and needs as basically a coat rack or a spine on which you have hung the story. Okay, now this book is interactive, and so hopefully you have printed this out, and we can go through this as if it's a workbook and you're actually going to do some writing in the book. If you don't, you can just write on a piece of paper. And the most important thing is I want you to understand that we're going to borrow here from actor's craft. And actors are trained that when they're trying to figure out how to act as a character, they have to speak to themselves first because they're all they have. So they have to figure out what they would do in any given situation, and from then, understanding what the differences between themselves and their character are, they can now figure out what their character would do. So because we're going to be working this way, I'm going to ask you to answer the questions for both yourself and your main character because I think that will make things faster. So before we actually get into the book, let's just take a moment, and on a little piece of paper you can write down the answers. So right now you're watching this teleseminar for another hour, let's say. What is your dream? Now, again, this is obviously could be a deep metaphysical question. Luckily, this is not that kind of workshop. Your dream is that at the end of this class, you will have enough information that you can start working on your screenplay. So we could say your dream is to write a screenplay. In Witness, as you know, Harrison Ford is trying to be a good cop, so we could say that his dream is to be a good cop. And you can now do this work for your character. Again, we're going to go into more depth, but let's just work out here, and there's no harm, there's no foul, just give it a shot. So what is your main character's dream? Keep it simple. Now, we know that there are A plots and B plots, there's a lot more to this, but I promise you that by staying right here, staying focused, and answering these 4 questions, you will get the information that you really need. And you see I'm making a gesture of, like, you know, really getting hold of that bone that you want. you're going to get it. So what is your main character's dream? In Witness, his dream is to be a good cop. In The Godfather, his dream is to live a life free of his father. In Working Girl, her dream is to get to be an entrepreneur, right? Think of whatever recent movies you like. In The Proposal, her dream is to stay in the country. Again, this is not rocket science. It gets more complicated. But now what's important is remember what I said about these 4 act breaks. Now, if you know what your character's dream is, and we know that, so remember question number 1 is what is my character's dream? And we know that the last act, the 4th question is, does my character get her dream or not? Then you can say, well, how can I be sure? And I'm often asked, do I need to know the ending of my movie? And the answer is, you always know the ending of your movie, in the sense that it's going to be a happy ending, or it's going to be a sad ending, or it's going to be a different kind of ending. And we don't know yet what that's going to be. All that I'm going to say is we do know that if we can ask and answer the question, what is my character's dream, then in the same way we can answer the question for Act 3. We can say, yes, we know the answer, but we're not sure which variation, as we do know it's going to end. We know that the character is either going to get their dream. Now, examples of this are, as I said, in Witness, his dream is to be a good cop and catch the bad guys. And in Act 3 of Witness, he gets his dream. Even though the bad guys come to him, he does catch them. In The Godfather, on the other hand, his dream is to live free of his father and the family crime business. And in the end of the movie, he takes over the family crime business, so he does not realize his dream. And then another alternative is a movie like Garden State, where in Garden State, his dream in Act 1 is sort of to just get through things and stay sedated, and in Act 3, his dream becomes to live his life and to find love with the girl. So these are 3 examples of movies that have different kinds of Act 1s and Act 3s. So you can certainly go and look and see, what appeals to you, but for next week it would be good if you watched Witness. So by answering questions 1 and 4, it leaves us with the long Act 2, which is Act 2 Part 1 and Act 2 Part 2 is what we call it. And we'll be talking more about those questions next week. So it's amazing how quickly the time goes. We're already 30 minutes in, and we don't have that much time. So I'd like you to go to first page 5, and we're going to just let all that, what I just said, sit for a minute. You may want to make a note somewhere that if you know Act 1, you can know Act 3. That would be really good if you got that for this class. And I'm actually going to write this down so that next week I know where we are. So if you can get the question, what is my character's dream, that means you can also understand what happens in Act 3. And as I said, it's not understanding it in the sense of an absolute fixed target. It's understanding that the ending will either be, answer will be yes, the character resolves his dream, no, the character forfeits their dream, or there's a whole new dream that comes up and the character either gets that one or not. The reason that I call these questions the 4 magic questions, as you'll read, is because they really do work like magic. And you can see how in, 28 minutes? Yes, we now have the first hour of a movie. So I want you to take a deep breath now and say that you've done very, very well. And as I say, you'll read about 3-act structure. I'm working through the book here. We're going to talk a lot more about the revolutionary way that we look at Act 2 in our next class. So, but what I do want to stress is on page 8, we talk about using a model film to understand your own screenplay structure. So the reason that I want you to watch Witness and to look at the breakdown is that you start to understand on an intuitive level how the 4 questions relate to the different parts of the movie. And we talk about how Witness began as an episode of Gunsmoke, and it was only by adding a whole different subplot in the second act that it got to be long enough and complicated enough to be a story. But again, that's next week.